They don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hi guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my wonderful, talented, beautiful, lovely co-host, Melissa.
Sure.
Cool. How you doing, Melissa?
One day left.
One day left
To the vacay.
One day left to the vacay, which is going to be amazing. But we're not here to talk about our vacay. What we're here to talk about today is, and this is a question we get a lot, but really it all boils down to what's the deal with code enforcement, meaning not what's the individual laws, but the code enforcement office, the code enforcement list, how code enforcement affects real estate investors. And
I think people freak out when they see that, but they really want the property to be fixed. They don't want to fine people. I think that's a misconception.
Yeah, I think that's right too. And I think, there's two sides of code enforcement as far as investors come from. There is the code enforcement side that's getting leads and working with them to solve problems in the community. And then the part I want to hit real quick first, because we've even run into this in some of our projects, is when you are actively working on a property and code enforcement comes, sees there's a problem, red lines your project, issues a stop work order, which is one of it. Can you tell them about our rehab Craigslist helper who?
So we were doing a flip and we had a Craigslist helper helping us do demo, and so we left him alone, which was probably a big mistake unless you have a history with these people. So he decided it would be way quicker if he just took out the whole window, and it was a big window in the front of the house. Take out the window so he could just throw stuff out into the dumpster. So although it was efficient for him, it happened to be the time that code enforcement was circling the neighborhood. And
I think though, wasn't it on the weekend too? So code enforcement shouldn't have been there. No, it was during the week. Mm-hmm. You might be able to get away with something like that on the weekend when code enforcement isn't working. Mm-hmm. So they came up and said, it looks like you guys are replacing windows, which in that area is something that you have to have a permit for, which there was obviously no permit because we weren't replacing the windows. And then what happened?
So they gave us the stop work order, and then we had to stop, and we couldn't do anything. And so
what ended up happening with that? Did we have to go to court? We
had to get our GC. Luckily, that was a friend of ours who was helping us. It wasn't somebody who was really GCing the property. He had to go out there and then talk to code enforcement and sign off on it, and then come back out. Of course, that's all time delays in your rehab, which means money. And that's what happened.
So there's that side of code enforcement, which I really think is what gets the bad name. There's a couple of things that you can do, which I see other investors doing this in what I think is the wrong way all the time. When code enforcement, because you got to think about what is code enforcement? This isn't the elected official. This isn't the people down at the county. They have no dog in the fight. They're just out there doing their job, driving around neighborhoods, similar to the way a lot of us do driving for dollars, looking for the same things we're looking for driving for dollars. And when they find it, they have to market. But what a lot of investors or a lot of people, homeowners too, that deal with code enforcement, instead of playing nice and trying to see them as an asset and as a friend, they get real pissed off and think that person has a specific vendetta against them, and that never works out in your favor, because even though this is just an employee of the city or county or whatever municipality you're in, that person wields a lot of power over your operation, whether you're flipping or as a rental property. So I think that, if you take a look at the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the better option, instead of getting to a pissing contest with somebody on the street, is to approach them from a position where you're asking for their help and trying to make friends with them. That's really, we talk about relationship. This is relationship business.
Yeah, for sure.
The code enforcement person who's driving around writing down code enforcement violations is definitely somebody you want as an ally, as opposed to a foe.
Yeah, for sure. Because if you're doing a lot of flips in that one area, you're going to see that guy or girl numerous times, and then they're going to have it in for you if you mess with them.
But on the other hand, if you built a really good relationship, they might even take note of the addresses and give them to you before they're putting them on the code enforcement list.
Yeah.
So you could use that to your advantage. Now, that was just a little part of what I wanted to talk about, and even though that same thing applies to the girls that work in the code enforcement office or the guys that work in the code enforcement office, it is the same thing. There is somebody who's in charge, somebody who is preparing that stuff to take it to court. But on the other side, we're looking at it as an investor looking for off-market properties, and code enforcement has been one of our biggest lead sources. And usually that code enforcement lead is stacked against some other list that we're using, whether that's probate, pre-foreclosure, divorce, eviction, something like that. But a lot of the common threads with our properties is they need work. And that usually comes because somebody who's been warned multiple times about the condition of the property, but still has chose to do nothing to fix it, either has way bigger things going off somewhere else, which is a sign of motivation.
Sure.
Or they don't have the money to put into to fix, money, time, or ability to fix the problem, which is also an indicator of motivation.
Yeah, and they're usually just finding them 100 to 250 to 500 a day. So it's not something you can just ignore for sure.
And the good thing about it is a lot of people that are motivated are in some sort of denial position. Mm-hmm. And the letters that code enforcement sends, certified letters, lets them know, hey, this is not a joke. So you don't have to agitate motivation as much because they're getting it from that other end. And that's a problem for them, which provides an opportunity to us.
They're usually not versed in how to handle it as either. So then there's that. Yeah. So a lot of people are fearful of any kind of government interaction, so to speak.
Yeah. And most of the people that we've dealt with that had code enforcement, their interaction with the government or with law enforcement has not always been the most positive interaction. So they just don't want to get in trouble or don't have the means to fix it. But if we're talking about the code enforcement list, I know that when we first started out, we got a lot of pushback on that. Can you talk about how we first came to finding the code enforcement list and maybe some of the issues we had when we were trying to get it to send it to us?
When we first started doing that after Michael, I mean, those lists were super long. And so you can't just do this, or you couldn't in Panama City at that time, just do this open-ended request. They wanted you to narrow it in. And it took us a while, like calling them and befriending these people and asking them to help us, how we define that to be able to get what we want. And, we were looking, we put in there, we're looking to help distressed properties. Can you provide us a list of all code violations, between X and X? So you just can't have this open-ended, send me all your code violations.
Yeah. And I think, the first couple of times we called and sent the email, they said, oh, no list like that exists.
Mm-hmm.
But we knew that that's not true. And so we had to elevate the conversation to below or to above the person that just answers the phone.
Right.
We had to explain who we are. It helped that we had a website and a company, and we were doing deals. That definitely helps and lends to the credibility of your company. But knowing because it's not that they don't have a list, it's that you need to know how to ask for the list specifically, and nobody's going to tell you how to do that.
Yeah. For sure.
But now, fast forward to, we've been doing this every single month for multiple different towns and counties across the Panhandle. Now, all we have to do is one of our virtual assistants sends them an email that says, hey, we're requesting a list of these violations between this date and this date. And they send it in. Now, it's not all of the counties and municipalities charge for it, but some of them do. Do you know how much the list costs?
I'm usually paying like $33 a month to get the list.
From just one county or from all of the other counties? And really, I think we did have to threaten some, or not threaten some, but we had to say, hey, we're going to do a FOIA request for this information. And there's a special way to fill that out, and you can go that route. But now, because we do it every month, Melissa knows the girl who takes payment for the list by name, and she expects her phone call,
Katie,
once a month. And really, you're not paying for the list, you're paying for the time to prepare the list. And if they have some nominal fee per page or per violation, but at $33 a month, that's more than reasonable. We've probably done, I would venture to guess that probably half, maybe a little more than half of the deals, off-market deals that we've done since 2018 had a code enforcement violation current or sometime within the last 2 years.
Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess don't look at code enforcement as bad. Mm-hmm. Try to make friends of those people, because they're the key holders to the information you want, and they're the people with the power to stop either violations. They get so much power, and I'm not even. Once the judge has ordered fines to be assessed, it even says on the letter that the person in charge of the code enforcement can give extensions without having to go back to the judge to delay the fines coming in. And so that's a person that you really want to be in touch with. So with all of that, be nice to them, because it's not going to help you to get upset and yell and scream. They don't care. It's just a job. 2, it's a valuable lead source that I think everybody should be using. And 3, if you're doing it right, you can negotiate some of those liens down sometimes, but that's never going to happen if you're being a jerk.
Great words.
Awesome. Anything else, Melissa?
That's it.
All right, guys, that's all we got this week. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.